back to Sunrise City. Well, yes, indeed, that's where we start our focus today. We're joined now by Honourable Mark Gbillah, who is a member of the Ad-hoc Committee on Media and Public Affairs. Morning, thank you for joining us. Well, many are looking at what's playing itself out and surprised, shocked in many quarters. What kind of explanation can there be for that kind of dishonourable show by the members?
Good morning, Chamberlain. Thank you very much for having me on your show this morning. And good morning, Suleiman. Good morning, Enyota.
Good morning.
Let me first of all start by unequivocally apologizing to Nigerians on behalf of the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, and the honorable members of the 8th House of Representatives for the ugly incident that occurred on the floor of the House yesterday. Now, it is important to recount the events of yesterday so it will be put in the right perspective, because offering an immediate explanation as to what happened, would not exactly give you a clear picture of the circumstances. So, Mr. Speaker had taken his chair and after the opening prayers had asked that the chairman of the Ad hoc Committee on Rules and Business move for the dissolution of the House into an executive session. It was at that point that some members of the House began to call for a point of order, which is in clear contravention of Order 8, Rule 43 of the Standing Orders of the House that clearly indicates the rules and proceedings of the business of the House. And at that point, an honorable member or two made for the mace, to the utter surprise of all members of the House. It appeared as if this action was premeditated because from the occurrences on the floor of the House, you could see, your cameras captured it, that some members had placards with inscriptions on them as well. So apparently, these members were clamoring for the reading of a letter from the APC to the Speaker. Now, that apparently was their own position, and unfortunately, the House did not have the opportunity to proceed with the activities of the day because these members interrupted the proceedings of the House in a very untoward manner, as has been captured by your camera. So this, in a nutshell, is what happened. So their own grouse is that the Speaker did not read the letter from the party.
That they misunderstood the call for an executive session, or what did the executive session entail?
Now, the executive session is meant strictly for members alone. Now, at that session is where intricate issues that are of urgent importance to the House are discussed without the presence of members of the press. So their action was rather preemptive. They could not tell what Mr. Speaker was going to ask the House to discuss. They did not wait for it to happen, and they just decided to interrupt the affairs of the House.
But you've interacted with them subsequently. Was there an explanation, or which one did they give, about why they came with the placards, why they moved for the mace, why some were chanting APC, the party is supreme, while some other groups were shouting the name of the Speaker?
Well, like I mentioned, it was at that instance yesterday that we noticed that some honorable members had a letter in their hands which they were raising up, and they were demanding that this letter be read because not one of them actually stood up to make this request because they did not even allow the process in the House to continue before this entire fracas began. So we are only deducing from the actions on the floor and from those honorable members who were being rather violent and vocal that they apparently were trying to defend the position or what they perceived to be the position of the party in this regard.
Okay, Mr. Gbillah, is it understood by all the members that the House of Representatives has more than one political party there?
Now, that's a very good question, NT. Now, it is very clear that every single member of the House is privy to the fact that the House of Representatives is the House of Representatives of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and is obviously encompassing members from different political parties.
So if that is understood, why would they be clamoring for a letter from their party to be read on the floor? I thought by your rules and what's generally acceptable, what should be read on the floor are executive letters from the president, not from the political parties.
Well, now, that is a question that you would have to pose to these members, you know. But in their own thinking, they apparently felt as if it was important for this letter to be read on the floor of the House. Now, let me say here very clearly, Mr. Speaker receives several letters on a daily basis, and you do not see members clamoring for those letters to be read, because this is communication that is sent to Mr. Speaker. He has the discretion as the presiding officer of the House to decide on what he deems fit to be read on the floor of the House. There's a portion of our rules that allows for announcements, but you cannot insist on the Speaker reading a letter on the floor of the House when he apparently appreciates the nature of the membership of the House. Like you rightly pointed out, it is not a one-party House.
Now that we understand that there is a rule of the House not to read such communication from political parties, but you say such announcements from political parties can be made maybe for caucuses to meet. Why was it a difficult thing for members to understand that, well, if truly there is, because I'm trying to look at the rules, there is a rule as that, why didn't they understand that it was a no-no for them to go ahead to read such letters?
Well, like I immediately pointed out earlier, it is actually a question of whether or not an individual member decides to appreciate the provisions of the standing orders of the House. Because like I pointed out, the only allowance in the proceedings of the House is announcements, and these announcements do not say that the Speaker should read a letter at that point in the business of the day of the House. It is...
Away from, very quickly here, away from the letter and what transpired, let's now look at it holistically and see the implication this has for our democracy and for the nation. You know, you just resumed from a certain recess, and now another recess has been put before the House till about 21st of July. And Nigerians are asking, the frequency with which this House is going to recess without having done anything to impact on your lives, doesn't that bother you as a member of the House?
Thank you, Suleiman. Before I answer your question, there's something I need to bring to the knowledge of Nigerians as well. And that is the fact that on the 24th of June, a court summons was served on Mr. Speaker with regards to this letter in question by the North Central Caucus, who were unhappy about their exclusion from the zoning of principal officers in the House. So perhaps that might also have been a factor in the inability, if he even wanted, of the Speaker to read that letter on the floor of the House. I just needed to point this out categorical without.
Let me